I probably first found out about David Goggins in the late 2010s when he was doing his podcast tour with Rogan and podcasters of the like. He was the baddest dude on the internet. Stay hard. He would run ultra marathons, 100 plus miles. He would do things that you didn't even know were possible. He was a Navy SEAL who went through Hell Week 3 times. And one of the times he was so close to having to fail again because he basically broke his leg and was duct taping his bone together, making a makeshift cast in order to not have to get pulled from the training. And Goggins talks about this idea of callousing the mind, of hardening the mind, building an unbreakable mind. And listening back to this podcast from 2023 with Chris Williamson, the Never Finished is the title, which is also the title of his second book that he came out with. Never Finished goes into how he stays on that path. And he talks about that with Chris in a really interesting conversation because you start to get into the psyche of someone who is striving for excellence, but not necessarily excellence. I don't think that's the right word. I think he's just constantly striving for improvement because his end goal seemingly is just how much more can I do? How much harder can I go? How much more can my mind or my body take till failure? And I like that. I think that's a unbelievable approach to life. He talks in the episode about how he's never failed at anything because if you extend the timeline long enough, you might fail an attempt, but you can always try again. So when he was going through, I believe it was the Moab, like 200-mile race, crazy. He quote failed the first time because he got lost. He made a wrong turn and he didn't finish within the time frame. But then he just got back on his horse, trained for however long till the next year, and finished that race. So he didn't fail. It just took him 2 attempts. And what's crazy about Goggins is he has these stories. He has this aura of motivation around him. He's done the podcasts. He's been on Rogan and countless of other podcasts talking about his story and his transformation of how he went from what he would self-describe as pretty much a bum, overweight, lazy, making nothing of his life to a top Adonis athlete type of competitor and a veteran for our country, for both the SEALs as well as the Army Rangers. Like, he has done some of the most insane training and challenges and sacrifices of any human, at least in the public eye, like that I've been exposed to. I mean, there are some crazy stories of I'll get into in the future of some others that have come up throughout history. But this guy is next level, and he talks about it in a way where he's doing things that are so good for like humanity beyond just proving to others what he can do. Like talking here about like he turned down millions in speaker fees and book advances and all these things to just make $15 an hour jumping out of airplanes into forest fires. And yes, there is a lot of growth in that. He gets into it. He talks about how, it's a humbling experience because he's working with some really bad MFers who they're not famous like him, but they still show up to do the job, and he's doing these really dangerous tasks of jumping out of airplanes to bring in the water for the hoses that they're gonna try to contain these fires in. And it's dangerous. There's wildlife, there's mountains and rocks and all that stuff. And he decided to do this because he needed to keep his mind sharp and humble, I would characterize it as. Because he can't let the fame get to him, because that would, in his eyes, make him soft. And for those that don't know David Goggins, his tagline is "Stay hard." And what is so inspiring, but also like almost forgotten about a lot of the things that Goggins does, like from a job, I guess, or work perspective, is like these are public goods. he's helping so many people through this. And I don't know if he's doing that because he is even looking for that benefit, or if he's just looking for the challenge. But does it really matter? Does him serving the country just to prove that he can get through Navy SEAL training and become an Army Ranger to prove that he can get through Ranger and Green Beret training? Does it matter if he's doing it for the selfish reason of just to show that he can withstand that amount of physical challenge? Does him jumping out of airplanes to put out fires to save the environment, right? Like, that's just something that I don't think gets talked about. Like, thank you for your service. And how many other people, or what is the percentage of people that are doing these crazy challenges that are just almost viewed as challenges? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just it wasn't like Goggins decided to become a SEAL because of 9/11. It seems like it was more because he wanted to prove to himself that he could do it. And for that respect, but also the ripple effect that has had is inspiring it in and of itself. And the reason why he talks about this is he says, like, you need to cap your success or it makes you soft. And there's definitely, I would think, truth in that. You know, and what's cool about Goggins is he's like a field general. Like, he is doing the work physically more so, like he is doing all these challenges. But a lot of the conclusions that he comes to are the same as any philosopher or psychologist or academic that I've read. It's pretty crazy when you think of, like, his knowledge just comes from straight up experience. Like, his growth paradox, the idea that he is on the ground floor, he caps his success because he doesn't want it to get to his head where then he like chooses to sleep in for a day. And he talks about William Crawford, who was a Medal of Honor recipient, who was just a janitor and wanted to give back. Like, that's the good in people that creates a paradox of growth, because you have a humility here that provides more of a inspiration to others of, oh, I can see that this person doesn't have to be doing this work, but because they care about my success, or because they care about this mission, or because they care about this mission, maybe I should too. And it's something that's bigger than me. So you take your success and you say, that's fine. I'll accept it, but I'm not going to harp on it. I'm not going to let it really run my ego, because I know there's still so much else to achieve. Goggins is supposed to be extreme. He's building people up. He's helping you work through those extremes. He talks about how everything that he wants to do is just 1 second at a time, 1 moment at a time. And the 130 hours of Hell Week. So when he's referring to his third one here, because again, he didn't fail the first two. They were just his first 2 attempts. It's wild. He's discussing how in the freezing water of the Pacific Ocean, he's just imagining himself on the beach with the other SEAL trainers, taking it 1 second at a time. Because if you can take it 1 second at a time, like if you can just go 1, 2, 3, and then it gets hard, 4, 5, just keep going. It allows you to cross the finish line, and at least the finish line for that specific task, because the important theme here is that you're never finished. So you're just on to the next thing, and that raises the bar. So what he's discussing here is after he is like capping his success, right? He's talking about how he is humbling himself. He's making intentional decisions to find new challenges and consistently grow. Like he's climbed a mountain, but that doesn't mean that there's another mountaintop that he can't climb. And in order to get to that next summit, he might have to start back at zero. He has literally decided to go from making crazy amounts of money to be able to provide for himself, his family, live comfortably, to making $15 an hour. So at that point, the money's not even he doesn't have to do it. The money doesn't matter. But it does provide a perspective of those who are doing it because they do need the money, because that is their job. And he's just there to support and learn about himself. And that is really important when you start thinking about Hell Week, because he becomes this beacon of inspiration for the people that he's working with. He went through Hell Week 3 times ultimately, right? So he has an experience that others don't have. And the 130 hours of Hell Week, those like 5 or 6 days, whatever it is, he just talks about, what if you just broke it down second by second? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. Because this is where he gets into that idea of the never failing, of only having new attempts. Because the second you ring that bell, you know that you failed. You can't. The only way to do it again is to re-go through Hell Week. But you already have that built into your brain of, this sucks. It's literally called Hell Week. It's the worst thing that you could do. And his whole point is, if you can just keep going 1 second after another of, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to keep going, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to keep going, then ultimately you will get to the finish line. You will like cross it, right? And it takes 1 second every time. But if you start thinking about like too far down, then that becomes almost, it's like, like that's never going to happen, or we're not going to get there anyways, so I'm not going to worry about that. So then when you're in the present, you can manipulate your mind to say, well, I made it through this moment. I made it through this moment, and another and another. And then you just start to take in the experience that you're there. And he talked about how he was able to pretty much manipulate his experience where he was in the freezing water. He's imagining himself like just chilling, just warm on the beach. And he takes it second by second. And that just shows the power of your mind, and the ability to say mind over matter and focus on your breathing of a way to just become like unbreakable. And that's the name of this, but it becomes a practice where you can do that for so many things. Like, he talks about how every period of Hell Week gets progressively harder. Like, yes, it starts pretty high energy because you're like, okay, we made it. We're at Hell Week. Like, we made it. We're here. Let's go. But the purpose is to break you. The purpose is to get you down to the studs, and you don't know how you're going to react until you're put into that situation. And you hear it when people go through hard races, and he talks about the silence of slipping into the darkness of that place where your mind, you're processing it, it's all brand new. And how do you respond? Because you don't know how you're going to respond until you're put into that moment. And in that moment, can you take one more step? Can you keep going? Can you not give up? And if you do give up, then how do you respond? Which is a whole nother side of the attempts. But it's 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 moving a mountain by going rock by rock, second by second. The reckoning is, can you imagine yourself living with yourself if you don't take that risk, or you do quit 20, 30, 40 years down the line? And as you go through the silence, as you go make through every decision, and as you get to the reckoning, you finally can put up that flag and say, yes, we got it. We won. You made it through Hell Week. Congratulations. Then what's next? Because you have to learn to perform without motivation. So if your motivation is just to finish this task, then good luck. Good luck, because you're constantly striving for something, and then you can't find any presence. You can't find any appreciation for the moment. And a lot of what Goggins talks about is this idea of discipline, discipline, discipline. And I think his dharma, because I just don't know. It's not that I don't agree with this, like, because you do have to learn how to perform without motivation. You have to learn to perform without purpose, because sometimes you got to be your best self when the cards aren't stacked up right against you. But I also think that his purpose is discipline. Goggins has been put on this earth to provide the highest, like, amount of edge that a human can really get, and you see that through his workouts and through his content, right? Of like how he pushes the human body to such an extreme, and that creates a understanding of, like, if I want to be great, then I have to do the work at the highest level. That's just what it is. If I want to achieve something, then I have to do the work, no matter what, regardless of when, where, how, who. Just make it happen, like a barrel your way through. And that is a skill that can be learned, because motivation flees, right? Inspiration comes and goes. You're not always going to be purpose aligned with everything that you're doing. But can you provide yourself a sense of discipline and a sense of understanding of why this will help you in the long run? Because when you look back at what Goggins has accomplished, I'm curious, and I would love to ask him, like, not necessarily the question of, oh, that time you wanted to go on a run and you didn't. Then he would just say, get back on the wagon. I'm more talking like, what's a time where you did have discipline, but you didn't go about that discipline the right way, or you had to adjust your discipline because of something that you ended up learning in the process, or because of something that you were missing? And how did that impact your overall route to where you are now? Because he is talking about mental toughness, and mental toughness is a analysis of, like, how quickly can you get back to neutral and get back to your understanding of what needs to be done and dealing with adversity and challenges from that regard. And it's also, change gets tiring. When you're constantly going through change, how do you reset? At this point, he gets deep into meditation and his like night routine. It's basically 2 hours of stretching and meditation every day. Impressive. I need to implement that back into my practice. And he optimizes his days like to none other, is one of the big takeaways that you can get from this conversation. And how can we, as learners, try and emulate that in ways that fit for our purpose and practice and what we're trying to achieve? Because what I actually love is, for those who watched the Rogan and Naval episode, Naval talks about how when he meditates, it's like going through his email inbox. Like he's cleaning out his email inbox one by one, just getting to inbox zero. Goggins being just a person who is literally like boots on the ground doing the work. Like he's talking about the garage. He's ready for war, man. He is doing basically the same thing as Naval. He's quieting his mind. He's organizing his mind, but he just talks about it as a cluttered garage. So the balance here of the garage versus the email is really funny to me, because they're the same thing. They're talking about the same thing. They came to the same conclusion, just in two very different approaches to life. Naval is a technologist who has built a career in Silicon Valley and investing. David Goggins is a badass Navy SEAL who built his career doing the hardest physical challenges. They both credit their success and their mental clarity to being able to just slow the mind and organize the thoughts, because we have so many thoughts throughout the day. And if you don't have an organized mind, then you can't have discipline, because you're constantly jumping from task to task, from idea to idea, and there's no direction there. So he becomes a single-pointed actor for the tasks that he needs to get done. And this is a quote from Chris quoting Alex Hormozy, who that's another person like on the scale of optimizer hustler to lazy and just kind of skating by. Hormozy and Goggins kind of fall close in the spectrum. And you need people like that. He talks about, you don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You become confident by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt. And that quote has gotten super viral. I've heard it so many times and I full on agree. It's like, don't tell me, show me. It's like, I can say that I'm going to do this or that I am going to achieve that, but until I actually do it, I'm kind of just making it up. And I don't like the idea of fake it till you make it. I don't think that that's valid, because imposter syndrome is where that idea of fake it till you make it. It's like, oh, I don't deserve to be here. No. I want to feel as though I deserve to be in every room that I'm in. That doesn't mean that I can't have a little bit of awe or a little bit of like, oh my gosh, like I made it. But you only have that sense of an imposter, because an imposter is basically like somebody's pretending to be somebody that they're not. That's like a fraud in another way to put it. And that will end up coming back to expose you. But if you are putting in work and you have a mental clarity, the garage is clean to know how your decisions can impact and progress towards your ultimate goal or your ultimate sign of towards improvement, then yeah, of course you're going to be confident. Of course you're going to be confident, because you know what you want to get out of the work that you're doing. And the doubts will come, The doubts will 100% come because it's hard. That is the point that Goggins is getting to. But how can you outwork that and callous the mind and become a receiver of challenges and saying, yeah, bring it on, because I have done all of this work not by shouting affirmations in the mirror, not by telling myself that I am destined for whatever. No, but actually like doing it. And that helps adapt your mind to the hard stuff that comes up. I mean, this part of the podcast, they're talking about, the discipline that goes into Goggins's routine, and it's wild. It is the structure of his days that I aspire to. I honestly think the most important thing, like, yeah, the routine is cool. The waking up at 5 a.m., like, respect, 5 a.m. club. But honestly, what speaks out to me here is he says he does these things, like, goes for a run and gets a workout in before he looks at his phone in the morning because he doesn't want to let the poison in. And this resonates hard with me because I have this issue, full stop. I like some days the phone is the last thing that I look at before I go to bed and the first thing I look at when I wake up. And I know that's not good for me. I know that's screwing with my sleep and my mental health and all these things. So it's like, are you really going to start the day with a loss? And when I heard Goggins say this, I was like, how can I build systems for myself to where maybe I'm not at the point of waking up at 5 a.m. and doing that yet. I do enjoy my sleep. But I also need to maintain a clear mind and not allow distractions to come in that will end up creating a potential opportunity for stress, just lack of dopamine and all these things. So I think that's the biggest takeaway here is like, how can you set up systems to where you do get at least like a taste of these things every day? You are waking up at the right time and you're getting movement in. You are staying active throughout the day. And then at night, and some people like to do this in the morning, but of mental clarity and meditation and stretching and really just decompressing your body. Because I think what is needed is some semblance of all of this throughout the day, probably every day, at least to try to. Goggins talks lastly just about pretty much living in the moment. A lot of people do an autopsy when they die. How'd you die? But we never do a live autopsy. Like, what's killing us while we're alive? What is eating away at us? What is taking our energy? What is providing a really inability for us to get over some of the mental humps that we're working through? And this comes to light through a practice of self-awareness. And in order to become self-aware, we have to limit the distractions, we have to sit in discomfort, and we have to create a environment for us to come face to face with the areas in our mind that are eating away at us and that are oftentimes ignored and suppressed. So what is so insanely important about hard physical challenges is when you put your body through these things, then the pain becomes so real that the emotions that we're storing are often like filtered through that pain. We often see it in our hips, we see it in our shoulders and our backs. Lower back holds stress, our hips hold a ton of trauma. Same with our shoulders. When you can purge that through a lot of different practices, like you can do it in yoga and yin yoga is like a great way. Like people cry in yin yoga classes because uh, they are digging so deep into the fascial tissue of their hips, for example, in like a pigeon pose that they'll begin to cry because yes, it's painful, but it's also you're flushing that emotion. And the practice of doing a live autopsy and being never finished is understanding what emotions and trauma and stress are you holding on to, and is that serving you? Probably not. More times than not, it will not be. So, what are you doing to work through it? How are you becoming aware and coming back to self? Because when you have all these distractions, it numbs the mind. And numbing the mind is not, that does not make the mind unbreakable. Let's just put it that way. And it's the plot of any movie, of any great story. It's not just a straight line up. There is setbacks. There is a dark chapter. Chris Williamson calls it the lonely chapter. Goggins talks about how he went through a lot of abuse and his mother went through a lot of abuse and he had to face that. And when you face it, when you label it, when you approach it, when you acknowledge it, then you can begin the process of synthesizing and digesting. Like your body doesn't really digest food while you're still eating it. It needs to have time to pass, and your gut needs to like identify what it's breaking down, the proteins and the macros, etc. So the body from a microscopic level is doing that, and sometimes it'll reject it. If you have bad seafood, that's a dark chapter. And then I'm not going to get street food that might make me sick. And the same goes for some of the experiences that we have, particularly when we're young, like the formative experiences, childhood trauma, etc., that you may forget or have forgotten about, but your body hasn't, your emotions haven't. There are triggers, there's trauma that comes up that is important to deal with and face. And I think we should embrace that because that is not only, yes, that might be a signal of weakness or something that we're not necessarily proud of, but it also probably has a other side to it where there is a lot of good to come out of it too. Some of the things that we like to blame our um, parents or upbringing or childhood on are also some of the things that we're probably most proud of. And Chris has really brought that to my attention where it's like, hey, if you have an issue with people pleaser, well, it's also because you keep the peace. You're good at keeping the peace. You're good at making people feel included. Yeah, sometimes that could be taken advantage of. And for me, it has. But I also enjoy connecting people and having everybody feel comfortable in a situation. So just because I have a tendency to people please, which a lot of people do as well, doesn't mean that that's like a full on weakness. Like that is just something that is going to be worked through. Now, this is an interesting one. It's so easy to be great nowadays. Most people are weak. Most people don't want to go that extra mile. Most people don't want to find that extra because it sucks. It's miserable. It's lonely. That's where I thrive. I've heard this from a lot of different people actually over the last few years. There's been a narrative that it's never been easier to succeed and a lot of people are weak and lazy and whatever. And I honestly, I don't buy that. I don't think that's true. I think it's never been more accessible to succeed. Anybody with a iPhone and a microphone that you can get pretty cheap on Amazon can record a podcast. But at the same time, that means anybody can do it. So the competition's never been greater. There's never been more content put out. So I agree with this from a consistency perspective. Like, and that's a theme that you see throughout any successful person. It's like consistency, consistency, consistency. They kept showing up. Consistency, discipline, what you can call it whatever. Like Goggins would call it discipline. And I think that is true. Like you stay in the game long enough, you're gonna figure something out. But it's not easy to be great. It's just not. It is competitive. And I fear that there's been a expectation that, just because somebody is working in a specific way, that means that they're hustling harder than others. Like maybe they have something else. I don't know. I really struggle with this one because I don't think it's easy to be great. I don't think it's ever been easy to be great. But I think that's good. Like you don't want it to be easy to be great, because if it was easy, then more people would do it. So the expectation for consistency and quality is a little bit lower. The accessibility is much lower. But I don't want to just poo-poo others because they don't necessarily have the same mindset. Everybody goes about it different ways in order to get to where they want to go. And when you are a high standard operator, you're going to go through challenges, and you're going to have to compete with other highly effective individuals. So it doesn't make it easy. But as long as you don't quit, then that's okay. That's okay. That's where like, just because something's simple doesn't mean it's easy. So the word easy really bothers me here. Because especially like this kind of contradicts Goggins in a sense. He doesn't want anything to be easy. He's seeking out the hardest things to do because that strengthens his mind. So you could tell yourself it's going to be easy, but you know it's not. That just doesn't really make much sense to me. But overall, I mean, I'm just so appreciative of this episode. It's challenging to talk about what it means to truly push yourself. And a lot of these ideas play on the opposites of what you typically expect. But I think that that's the point. You need to come to these same conclusions through opposites. You need to see the struggle and the beauty in the struggle, because that's where a true, authentic story is created. And what's awesome about this is at one point in the episode, Goggins said, like, I don't like doing podcasts. I'm done doing podcasts. This is going to be the last one for a while. I haven't seen him really do a podcast since. It's been 3 years. He's popped up and training UFC fighters a little bit and doing some other stuff, I'm sure. But I think when he talks about the extra, that is the truth. When he talks about the hard of success, it's true, because we have so much access to knowledge. Like he has given the playbook of what it takes to succeed. So from that respect, it's easy. It's easy to get started, but it's hard to be great. And I just want to make sure that that comes across, because throughout all of this, it comes down to just stay in the game, second by second, moment by moment, and never quit, because you're never finished. You don't have to be finished. Quitting is a choice in that respect. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to continuing to follow Goggins' journey. Hoping he does another interview sometime soon, because these ideas are timeless. These ideas you can constantly come back to of, how can I challenge my mind to keep going, because once the mind breaks, then the body will follow. But if the mind doesn't break, then the body will keep going. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think I'm going to continue to annotate and add notes as we go through. If you have any podcast recommendations, comment on this video. And looking forward to the next one, because I got a good queue of podcasts that I'm always listening to, always trying to draw conclusions and add insights to. So, aho. Thank you again to Chris Williamson and David Goggins. I have a feeling there will be many Chris Williamson episodes that I go through throughout this journey. So this is just the first of many. Cheers.